What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got our Week 10 fantasy football running back starts and sits for every single matchup, so make sure to tune in. If you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear in the comment section, do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have. We'll do our best to answer them all, but with that being said, let's get right into it. Before getting into our breakdown, I want to highlight the sponsor of today's video, OddsJam. OddsJam continues to be the place that I use for all of my sports betting research, from the NFL, NBA, MLB, to daily fantasy and everything in between. But don't just take my word for it. Let me show you firsthand all the amazing tools OddsJam has to offer. Starting with their positive EV tool, which identifies situations where a single sportsbook has mispriced their line compared to the rest of the market. They're basically willing to pay a lot more so that you bet with them compared to the other sportsbook. At the end of the day, you're getting the best odds, essentially a mathematical edge and guaranteed money in the long run. But also available is OddsJam's arbitrage tool, which shows situations where the market is so mispriced that you can bet on both sides and guarantee a risk-free return. OddsJam's calculators show you exactly how much you have to bet on the over and under and what the respective guaranteed risk-free return would be. There's also OddsJam's Sportsbook tool, which consolidates all available market info, over 200 sportsbooks, and provides updates in real time and allows you to see line movement. But my personal favorite is their Fantasy Optimizer tool, which is great for those using PrizePicks, Underdogs, or other daily fantasy sites, as you get to see discrepancies between all of these sportsbooks. Imagine, PrizePicks has a Patrick Mahomes line at 200.5 passing yards, and all other books like FanDuel and Underdog have this line at 230 passing yards. Well, getting the over 200.5 on PrizePicks would be an absolute steal. Guess what? OddsJam does that for you. And the good news is, if you sign up today and use our code PIGSKIN, check the link and promo code in the description of this video, you will get 25% off your first month. OddsJam also has a 7-day free trial, so you get to try before you buy. So don't waste any more time and sign up for OddsJam using our code PIGSKIN today. Now, we kick off Week 10 on Thursday with the Panthers at the Bears. And we're not going to lie to you, this is going to be an ugly game. Possibly the two worst teams in the NFL squaring up. And it's kind of a struggle to find reliable fantasy starts here, but we'll do our best. Now, as far as the running back position is concerned, I'm mainly looking at Carolina and Chuba Hubbard. Out of all the guys involved here, he is the main bell cow, if you can even call him that. Now, yes, Miles Sanders was paid a lot of money this offseason, but whether due to injury, ineffectiveness, or the hot hand approach, he has been the backup since he's returned from his injury, and I don't see that all of a sudden flipping. I still think Hubbard will get the majority of the carries. He's being utilized as a pass catcher. The Bears defense doesn't scare me, so you could do worse, even though the Panthers have a bad offensive line and are a bad team in general. So I'm expecting high-end running back 3 production from Hubbard here, between 10 and 12 points. Miles Sanders, the backup, is a sit. For the Bears, you might be surprised that I have all the rushers as sits, but let me break it down for you. Even though the Panthers are one of the worst run defenses in the NFL, with the Bears, what's happened is that since Herbert has been hurt, D'Onta Foreman has established himself as the primary guy. Also, Roschon Johnson a little bit on top of that, and the quarterback taking away rushing opportunities as well. And Khalil Herbert, maybe if this was, his second, third game back from injury, hasn't had a chance to reestablish himself. I think especially on his first week back, you're going to see really split carries here. I don't think a single running back, unless it's a blowout, is going to have more than 10 rushes here. And I don't think it's going to be a blowout. Both these teams are very bad that neither one is really going to pull away, in my opinion. So that's where we stand here. Now, if Khalil Herbert doesn't play, then I will start D'Onta Foreman, and I do think he is a better start than Chuba Hubbard. Next, we've got the Colts at the Patriots. Here, Jonathan Taylor, I think, again, we're getting to that point in time where he is getting the bulk of the carries compared to Zach Moss, who, to his credit, has filled in wonderfully for Jonathan Taylor, and even for several weeks in tandem was doing just as good, if not better than Taylor. But I think, again, right here for the home stretch, we've got Taylor where we want him. Low-end running back 1. The matchup could be a little bit better, but the Patriots don't scare me too much. Zach Moss is a sit for me. Then for the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson. Now, a lot of people will point to the one long touchdown that inflated his stats last week. That is absolutely true. But I think, again, I've said it before in PPR formats, his floor is going to be higher due to his pass catching abilities. I really think the Patriots need to unleash him a little bit more so as a rusher, as a pass catcher. The Colts defense, a good team to do that against. So I have him as a low-end running back too. Again, you're not going to see what you had from him last week, 20-plus points. I think between 10 and 15 points is what you should expect. And then I'm sitting Ezekiel Elliott. I think both Moss and Zeke are mainly handcuffs at this point in time. Then Browns at the Ravens. I'm only really trusting Jerome Ford. I think he's back from his injury. He outsnapped Kareem Hunt, and he's also being utilized as a pass catcher as well. I think Kareem Hunt, you're going to be looking at touchdown upside and looking at favorable matchups. I don't think this is the best matchup here versus the Ravens, so I'm not going to get too creative here with multiple Browns running backs. I think Ford is the name to know, but again, I think you're probably looking at high-end running back 3 production between 10 and 12 points. For the Ravens, a lot of names here: Gus Edwards, Mitchell, and Justice Hill. So I think a lot of people are going to say, how can you sit Edwards? The last couple of weeks, he's been a touchdown machine. Tough matchup versus the Browns. And with Mitchell kind of emerging, even though I don't think he's going to take over this backfield with Lamar Jackson there, with Justice Hill there, I think this is the week where the Ravens aren't going to have a true fantasy high-end running back. For that reason, and with just multiple names being there, I would sit all the Ravens rushers. Then Packers at the Steelers. I will start the top running backs here individually. First, for the Packers, you've got Aaron Jones. They got him a lot more involved last week, and I think you continue that here versus the Steelers, even though I don't think his upside is going to be as high as it was last week in PPR formats. I think he's a low to mid-level running back too. A.J. Dillon is a sit. For the Steelers, you could actually argue that Jaylen Warren could be a start, but I'm going with Najee Harris. He's still barely outsnapping Jaylen Warren. I think he's got higher touchdown upside, especially with, usage kind of in the red zone type of situation. The Packers don't scare me. I think either way, though, Harris is going to be a boomer bust low-end running back too, kind of depending on how this game script goes. If you're desperate, you could give Jaylen Warren a chance. Moving on, we've got the 49ers at the Jaguars. This one is very simple. You start both Christian McCaffrey and Travis Etienne. McCaffrey, a top 3 running back. Travis Etienne, a top 10 running back. Really matchup proof, both of them. So let's move on. Then Saints at the Vikings. I'm only starting Alvin Kamara. Now, with Kamara, the thing here is I think he's going to bounce back compared to last week. Not that it was a horrible week or anything like that, but what you're seeing is Taysom Hill taking away a lot of the opportunities. Williams coming back and being a little bit more involved, but it's mainly Taysom Hill. However, I think Kamara is going to return to being a low-end running back 1 here. The Vikings don't scare me. He's the only start I have. Alexander Mattison, I have as a sit. Tough matchup versus the Saints. And you might be saying, well, Cam Akers, Achilles injury, he's out for the rest of the season. But sure, that's true. However, now we're basically back to how Alexander Mattison was at the start of the year when Akers wasn't there. And he was still a matchup-based play then. So with that being the case, I don't think this is the game you want to go with him versus the Saints. And on top of that, no Kirk Cousins. I think the Vikings are going to struggle a little bit more so when you look at the competition here, being the Saints compared to last week. Then Texans at the Bengals. I only really have faith in Joe Mixon here. I think it could be a decent matchup, mid to high-end running back 2. Then for the Texans, I'm sorry, Dameon Pierce, Devin Singletary versus this team where they're going to have to be pass-heavy. I don't see it. The rushing game hasn't been there really all season long. It's not going to start all of a sudden now. Afterwards, Titans at the Bucks. I'll start Derrick Henry and I'll start Rachaad White, but let's temper the expectations, break it down a little bit more. So Derrick Henry, he's more so just a standard-based play in PPR scoring. I think, you can make a case to sitting him because this Buccaneers front is going to be tough for Derrick Henry. And I still think Derrick Henry is a boom or bust mid-level running back too. For the Bucks, you could argue the way Rachaad White, primarily in PPR formats, has been utilized as of late, has higher upside than Derrick Henry, but I'm going to put him there right one next to the other, low to mid-level running back 2. In standard formats, he would be lower just because of how much upside he has as a pass catcher as of late. Then Lions at the Chargers. David Montgomery expected to return. So you're going to have a little bit of a, committee approach here. Jahmyr Gibbs, excellent couple of weeks, but I do think it comes to an end. Essentially now, I think both these guys are going to be low to mid-level running back twos. For the Chargers, Austin Eckler, top 3 running back. I love the upside here. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair, so absolutely go ahead and trust him. Then Falcons at the Cardinals, Bijan Robinson. It's been tough sledding the last couple of weeks, especially with Arthur Smith at head coach, seemingly making inexplicable decisions in terms of his top players. But this Cardinals defense, it's a good matchup, so I think Bijan can, worst case scenario, be a high-end running back too. For the Cardinals, very, very interesting situation. You see James Conner's name with an asterisk. That is because he's technically eligible to return from his IR stint. Will he? That is another question. If he does, though, you fire him up, you sit DeMarcado. And the big thing here for the Cardinals, Kyler Murray expected to start. That is going to completely change this entire offense. So very excited about that. If Conner doesn't play, then I actually would start DeMarcado. But I do think Conner, if healthy, he's going to start. Then that's really end of conversation. So kind of just have to monitor Conner's health here in general. Then Giants at the Cowboys. I'm not really excited about the Giants offensively, considering they're down to their third-string quarterback. I think the Cowboys are going to absolutely smack them, but Saquon Barkley is probably going to get 20-plus carries in this game. So from that perspective, he's going to have the opportunity, but I think he's a low-end running back too in this game. You could even call him boom or bust. For the Cowboys, Tony Pollard has been awful these last couple of weeks. Just the utilization hasn't been there, but I think versus the Giants, versus this awful of a team, you're going to see him kind of get it done here. I have him bouncing back as a high-end running back too. Then Commanders at the Seahawks. Brian Robinson, I have as a start. The Seahawks don't scare me defensively too much, so I have Robinson as a mid-level running back too. For Seattle, similar type of situation with Kenneth Walker. I think he bounces back. It's not going to be a blowout like it was versus the Ravens. I think it's going to be a close game. So to me, Kenneth Walker, a decent start. Then Jets at the Raiders. I'll start Breece Hall, start Josh Jacobs, but I say this about Breece Hall again. Unless the matchup is extremely, extremely favorable, and unless he breaks off a huge run or a huge catch for a touchdown, Breece Hall will give you headaches, and he will be a boomer bust low-end running back too. That will be the case this week. For the Raiders, Josh Jacobs, I think the Raiders might blow out the Jets, so Jacobs to me is a solid low-end running back one play. Then Broncos at the Bills. I'm only really willing to take a chance on James Cook. Even that might be a little bit optimistic, but the Broncos don't scare me. I think the Bills bounce back here. So James Cook to me is a low-end running back too. He's going to be a matchup-based guy. Then for the Broncos, I don't love the matchup versus the Bills. I think it could be a blowout. Javonte Williams is a sit. But with that, we wrap up our Week 10 fantasy football running back starts and sits for every single matchup. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? We'll do our best to answer them all. But with that being said, we'll see you guys in future videos.